Hi, welcome. My name is Allison Rivers. I use she, her pronouns. My master's in social work project is centering youth as co-researchers to map community assets, which I chose because the values of equity, dignity, and full potential for everyone everywhere are deeply meaningful to me. I dedicate this project to the young people who gave their expertise and their time so that this could be available. My research question is using a strengths-based approach, what are the assets in Western Nevada County through a prevention lens that creates safety and belonging for people 13 to 18 years old? For the literature review, I researched issues of rurality, adolescent mental health, belonging and safety, youth participatory action research, or YPAR, you'll hear a lot about that, asset mapping, and strengths-based approach. Compared to urban communities, rural areas tend to have limited support networks with a shortage of healthcare workers and mental health providers, insurance restrictions, financial inequities, and substantial transportation barriers. In rural settings in Northern California and across the US, the racial makeup of the population is overwhelmingly white. In Nevada County, the census indicates it's nearly 85% of the population. The region's history of gold mining is intertwined with forced labor, which is evident in continued racial tension and resistance to welcoming non-white persons into the community. Literature suggests that racism, homophobia, and transphobia are common in rural communities. As a resident of Nevada County with close connection with youth in our schools, I know this to be true. In small communities, social capital is afforded to those with personal relationships that develop over time and in multiple contexts, like community meetings, the grocery store, and cafes. However, for those who are seen as outsiders, such connectivity is not as readily available. The Science of Learning and Development Alliance describes supportive environments filled with safety and belonging as one of the 5 non-negotiables for equitable whole child design. Feeling safe and having a sense of belonging at school is a protective factor against negative outcomes of anxiety, depression, low self-esteem, and physical health challenges. Inclusion and safety are linked to engagement, attendance, and achievement, all of which are factors in a school district's state-based funding. In this literature review, many categories were clearly intertwined, including the effects of rurality, racism, and homophobia, limited resources, and mental health struggles. Safeguards appeared as social connectedness, belonging, safety, and centering youth as experts in their lived experience. The literature supports increasing social connectedness and developing a positive school culture. The gap is that young people are not often asked directly about their experiences, nor are they included with shared power where decisions are made that affect them. For this reason, I employed several key strategies to maximize the integrity, authenticity, and participation in this project. First, I used the central tenets of youth-led participatory action research, or YPAR. The reasons are that it engages youth in the research process to investigate and address issues affecting them. YPAR also acknowledges and centers young people as experts in their lived experience and encourages collaboration, critical thinking, and youth leadership. YPAR is an antidote to the typical way things are done, which John Bell described as adultism, where adults position themselves as superior to young people and thus do unto youth without their consent. Adultism is evident in programs and services that have been developed by adults for youth without youth voice and input. An additional strategy used is grounded theory methodology, which is applied to qualitative social science research. The analysis is inductive, meaning that the researcher doesn't begin with a hypothesis. Instead, the hypothesis emerges through discovery and revelation in the analysis process. Constant comparison, which I'll explain later, is used to reduce and categorize data using participants' exact wording. Combining grounded theory methodology with youth participatory action research, or YPAR, promotes a sense of ownership, enhances the validity and relevance of research findings, and fosters positive youth development, confidence, and leadership skills. Needs assessments are a commonly used tool to identify what's missing in a community. However, needs assessments are a problem-based model that focuses on weaknesses. Another approach is to develop a participatory, strengths-based asset map. Although an asset model may produce similar results in terms of identifying needs and gaps, the focus of an asset map is on existing strengths within a community instead of problems. Using a strengths-based perspective may help shift the focus toward investing in prevention, bolstering existing efforts, and informing future programs and funding to support high school-aged youth in Western Nevada County. For the methods, as the principal investigator, I recruited and facilitated a research team of 14 high schoolers, conducted focus groups at 4 high schools in the area, interviewed 6 adult leaders to compare and contrast what the adult perceptions of the same questions youth were asked in focus groups, and in alignment with best practices, I fundraised to pay stipends to all focus group participants and co-researchers, so all youth received stipends. The research team, that's the high schoolers, designed the protocol for the focus groups, coded and analyzed focus group transcripts using grounded theory methodology. The way that worked is using constant comparison. Remember, I mentioned that was coming back. So how that happens is they first, each researcher individually codes a transcript, each creating a single code sheet. Then 2 people who coded the same transcript got together, compared the commonalities of their individual code sheets, and reduced their 2 code sheets into 1. After that, 2 pairs, brought their single reduced code sheets together, compared them, and created 1 code sheet of commonalities. You with me? Finally, the full team came together with reduced code sheets from which 5 common themes emerged. I'll share with you. The primary limitation of this project was time. As a student in the 1-year Master's of Social Work program, an intern, mom, and active community member, there were not enough hours in the day for me to spend as much time as I would have liked. The high schoolers on the research team were constrained by their very full schedules, so we were unable to meet for as much time as we would have liked, even though we were able to extend our meetings. Initially, I thought that we could do this in 4, and it took us 10, and we still could have done more. And they were very engaged. Another limitation is that the sample size was limited to 1 high school district. So responses are absent from adolescents at other schools outside that district and those who don't attend school. Ethical considerations focused on confidentiality, including obtaining verbal agreements about confidentiality from the focus group participants, creating audio-only recordings that only I listened to. No names were used in the focus groups. Audio files were exported to Otter AI to create transcripts that were edited for accuracy, and potential identifiers were removed. I also redacted an extensive and explicit discussion of drug use due to minors on the research team. Focus group participants were debriefed with information about mental health supports available to them during and after the focus groups, if anything arose that was upsetting to them. The research team developed the focus group protocol questions, which were: what do you enjoy doing? What does safety mean to you? What does belonging mean to you? What does safety mean to you? And why is it important? What do you love about our community? The million-dollar question: if you had $1 million to invest for youth your age in our community, how would you spend it? And who should make decisions about how that $1 million is invested. Later, I'll share the surprising answer from all focus groups. And finally, what are some challenges young people face in our community? I asked parallel questions when interviewing adults, though this time asking about adult perceptions of youth. Each participant in focus groups and in interviews was asked to complete an anonymous demographic survey. I made a conscious choice to do this differently. I created an open-ended survey with questions that people could just fill in the answers to, rather than the typical prescriptive check boxes with predetermined options. Creating a survey in this way made space for individuals to self-identify. This is one way to share power with youth, to meet them where they are. As you'll see, doing things differently allowed for deeper, more insightful results. When asked about race and ethnicity, adults used 4 identifiers, whereas youth had 11. With gender, adults chose a binary, and youth had 5 variations. When asked if the respondent closely identifies with the LGBTQ+ community, adults had 4 types of answers, and youth specified 13. I thought a lot about what all these differences might illustrate. One is that the younger generation is more expansive than in their identities than the older. Another is that adults have had a very different life, really different life experiences than today's youth, which can make it hard to relate to what young people are facing. This can be an issue when adults have the power to create policies and programs that impact youth. And it becomes especially concerning when those policies and programs are developed without youth input. This is why strategies such as YPAR are so critical. 4 focus groups with 26 high school students revealed that while there are some assets for youth in Western Nevada County, substantial gaps and areas of concern exist. The research team identified 5 themes, as I mentioned before, from that constant comparison and reduction process of grounded theory methodology. And the interviews with 6 adult leaders who work on behalf of youth revealed similar themes, though slightly different perspectives, which I'll share. It's important to note that although we set out to map the assets in the community from a prevention perspective, what was more revealed were gaps. Similarly to the topics in the literature review, the themes have significant overlap. The first theme is natural resources and activities. Western Nevada County is a rural community known for its natural beauty and outdoor activities, such as mountain biking, hiking, and the Yuba River. Within schools and the community, there are also organized clubs for activities such as sports, art, music, and theater. However, for various reasons, an essential portion of youth feel a lack of connectedness and aren't accessing all the available resources. The focus groups and interviews revealed those reasons. The youth said, skate parks and stuff for our age, they're so corrupted with drugs. Public transportation, especially for people who can't drive or anything, that would be really nice. Or bike lanes, increased kind of accessibility to biking and public transportation, and hopefully, preferably, run on clean energy. An adult said, families who are connected and well-resourced and interested in making sure their kids are busy, happy, and connected to things, yeah, I'm sure they're all connected and doing great things. So my concern is for those families that don't engage in that or don't have access to that. Services and community events include government and nonprofit services, which mostly focus on responsive care after something goes wrong. There are abundant resources of this nature in the community, though very few programs and supports that are available to young people focused on helping things go right to prevent them from needing to use these services. Multiple seasonal community events include the County Fair, Latino Heritage Day, the Toy Run, and Victorian Christmas. The majority of focus group participants expressed that most currently available services are for after someone has a need rather than preventive, to create conditions where more involved assistance is not needed. However, not everyone who needs these supports, even after things go wrong, feels they can access them. Youth say, we don't have any good facilities. We have a mental health ward in the hospital, and that's it. And it's really not good, because a lot of people struggle with their mental health, especially around here, and they have nowhere to go for that's actually going to help them and not send them to jail. And an adult said California's school perspective is that it's very clear that kids are suffering and need more in the schools. So I think everyone's trying to figure out how to do that and pay for it. Accessibility was the third theme, and it showed up in a few different ways that are interwoven with all the other themes, focused largely on transportation and affordability. The strong theme of belonging and safety was central to this research. Belonging was defined as feeling a part of something, and safety as not feeling anxious all the time. Youth have a holistic understanding that both belonging and safety impact everything in life, and especially affect the ability to function and succeed. Youth spoke of things that increase belonging, such as in the wider community, maybe like your people are out there in the community, and seeing people like you belonging makes you kind of feel like you could also belong, as well as those that hinder it, such as a lack of diversity in the community, especially among adult leaders. Students of culture and those identifying within the LGBTQ plus community described this deficiency, saying, we need people like in leadership that come from different backgrounds, different cultures, people who are like immigrants, people who are not cisgender, people who are not heterosexual, all these different kinds of things, like people who have personally experienced like a mental health crisis, because no one's going to know better what those people need than like them. This contributes to youth's sense that leaders are unrelatable and that those in power do not represent young people. Adults who were interviewed acknowledge that it's critical for young people to feel a sense of belonging and safety. The final theme is substance use. In the local community and on many school sites, substance use is normalized, which can result in youth becoming addicted. At that point, they feel that it's hard to find a way out, even though they're well educated on the detriments of using substances. Young people say they turn to substance use for a variety of reasons, including as a coping strategy for mental health challenges because they can't access affordable therapy, for something to do when they're stuck at home and can't get to the few events in the community that are appealing to young people, and to belong with their friends. One of the most striking conversations was a discussion in one of the focus groups about vaping. They said, you're bored, and then you just eventually get addicted to it, and then you're dependent on it. Another said, I'm worried about my lungs. Still another, I used to be an athlete. And one more person chimed in saying, now it's hard to walk up a hill. In larger schools where students can get lost, one adult leader recommends to incoming high schoolers and their caregivers to plug into something, because that's going to kind of shrink their world and give them a smaller community to be a part of. After we completed the analysis, I talked with the research team about their experience of being a part of YPAR. Walter from the research team shares what it was like to work on this project.
As a student, I really wanted to be involved in this research because I felt that it would really benefit me learning really how to be a researcher and improve my skills, as an academic. On the flip side, I also feel like I'm a leader in my community, and I strive to properly represent and lead those that are my peers and those who I have responsibility for. This kind of participatory research is very, very valuable. Clearly, it's just something that we should strive to do more of, and it is definitely a great thing to do, not only for helping learn new skills, but also to feel like they're involved, feel like they're heard, and feel like they have a stake in what's going on so that they're not left out.
More co-researchers highlight the positive impacts of YPAR. Talia says teenagers have decisions made about and for them all the time, but it's rare that our voices have a meaningful effect on those decisions. AJ remarks on the importance of having youth's voices heard, especially in places where we don't normally have access to speak. And Riven recounts the value of real experience conducting research, building skills of communication, problem solving, and collaboration. Support and excitement about the possibilities from this project were expressed by various leaders, including Allison Lehman, County Executive Officer, who said that the data gathered in this project will help guide community investments. This was a big undertaking. One of the many things I learned is that doing things differently brings different results. Think back to the demographics. Although YPAR takes more time, it's more rewarding and fun. I loved working with my research team. I was surprised by the degree of contrast between the ways different generations identify themselves. Although it's common for adolescents to feel misunderstood by adults, this was one area that showed very objectively how young people are far more expansive than most adults. During focus groups, I was really touched to witness conversations between youth with very different life experiences, increasing their understanding of one another and asking me if we could have more groups like this for them to take the time to sit together and talk. They said, we're really not that different. Youth are very concerned about the division in our community and our world and feel that groups like this could help bring them together. I wish I'd had more time to conduct focus groups with students at other high schools, those who don't attend a traditional school, and youth who are middle school aged. During this program, I had a significant personal transformation and felt nourished by this work through a very difficult time. I made many connections and broadened my network in my community. After I graduate, I'll be starting my own consultancy business and look forward to helping make an impact in my community for young people. I'm excited to encourage other adults to use a more holistic perspective and to create more spaces where youth can have meaningful influence. Listening to young people can be deeply inspiring. This is apparent in the collaborative response every focus group answered about the $1 million question. When asked who should decide how the money is spent, they said, everyone, us, our peers, parents, caregivers, teachers, staff, and community leaders. Everyone. The next steps are to write a community report, offer local presentations with members of the research team. The information gathered in this project is valuable for the county Office of Education, Youth Commission, city councils, and as a grant resource for nonprofits and government agencies to fund future initiatives, such as a community center, which participants voiced as a need. This project also shows the value and need for additional research centering youth voices. As resources are brought into the county for youth, such as through Cal Hope's Behavioral Health Initiative, we need to make sure youth are more central to making decisions about where that money goes so that the programs that are developed are actually used. This direction follows YPAR's unique commitment to using the work to create change through action. Thank you.